Today, I have Sean Singh, the director and founder of PropSpotter, a research house, who I have teamed up with to help my investor clients, who is bridging the gap for investors who cannot afford a full buyer's agency service that can cost up to $20,000.
PropSpotter is the smarter way home. The first one is that we sit down for a strategy session with any of our potential clients. We want to understand what they're looking for from their property investment, where are they looking, what are they considering, and what their long-term strategy is.
Say you're ready to invest, but you don't know where to start, or you don't know where to invest because you don't know if it's a good investment property or not. You can't afford a full buyer's agency fee, which could cost you up to $20,000. I got the perfect solution for you today. I'm your host, Tony Shah, and thanks for joining me on another episode of The Mortgage Chat. Today, I have Sean Singh, the director and founder of PropSpotter, a research house, who I have teamed up with to help my investor clients, who is bridging the gap for investors who cannot afford a full buyer's agency service that can cost up to $20,000. So now let me introduce you, my mate, Sean, right here.
Pleasure to be here, Tony.
So Sean, before we get into the nitty-gritty bits about PropSpotter, give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, certainly, Tony. So I grew up in Singapore, moved here to Australia in 2003, did my school and studies here, and then started out in the finance industry. Found that was pretty boring, so I left after 2 or 3 years to start my own business. That didn't go so well, learnt a lot of lessons, but over the last 7 years, I've spent my time at a fintech business called Stake. While I was there, I also was an avid property investor, and Tony knows all about that. But most recently, I found a gap in the market, a gap where people needed assurance about what they wanted to buy, but they weren't sure exactly where to buy, and they weren't sure if their decisions were correct. And so they needed a little bit of that validated as well. That's essentially how PropSpotter was born. PropSpotter is the smarter way home.
So tell me about PropSpotter, right? And we've worked together a fair bit. You know, you're a client of ours, and we never work with buyer's agents because I just don't like working with buyer's agents. I don't think majority of them should be paid the fees they should be paid, right? Could be 12, 15, 20 grand, whatever it could be, okay? So you tell me, what is PropSpotter? What do you guys do? And essentially how you help our clients.
Yeah, so PropSpotter is the smarter way home. Really 3 simple steps in our process. The first one is that we sit down for a strategy session with any of our potential clients. We want to understand what they're looking for from their property investment, where are they looking, what are they considering, and what their long-term strategy is. With all of that in mind, we then select the right suburb for them. After that strategy session, our team will begin to send out curated property listings of eligible properties in that suburb that fit your criteria, or the investor's criteria in this case, and we'll do that until you find a property. The negotiation and due diligence is on your end, but our team are here to support.
Yeah, sure. So essentially you're doing all the groundwork, right? You're doing the research, you're drilling down the area, okay? You're meeting the scope of the client, you're sending the client listings, okay, of properties that fit those criteria within those locations, but essentially they do the negotiation themselves, or they find the property themselves. Essentially, is that what it is?
They'll have to do the negotiations and due diligence on that specific property themselves. So things like organizing the builders and pest inspections, running any models on any renovations that they'd like to do on the property. All of that will have to be done by themselves.
Yep.
But they're getting all of this service at a fraction of the price of a full service buyer's agent.
Right, but you know, yes, you know, you want them to do the DD themselves, right? But you know, for pest and building, conveyancing, etc., depreciation reports, can you help them out at all? Or do you
we've got the contacts. We've got a client, you know, who's currently doing a property in Melbourne. We've provided them with a renovation contact, a building and pest inspection contact, a property management contact. The liability just falls onto them to sort of organize and coordinate that.
Sure.
That's where a lot of the time suck happens in a full service buyer's agency.
Yeah, cool. So you just want to be, essentially you just want to stick with, just as a research house, essentially providing the client all the information.
That's right. We provide them with all the information, the right suburb to buy, and we send them eligible properties. The rest of the onus is on the client. Sure. If they're really into getting that property investment journey underway, they've got everything in front of them to get started.
Sure. So essentially, PropSpotter is a research house that does 80% of the work for you, and the client does the other 20% for a fraction of the price, essentially, yeah?
1/10 of the price.
1/10. Could
Let's
be
be clear on that.
Got okay. So Sean, I've come across a lot of buyer's agents in my life. Okay, mate, I get calls, once a week, once every 2 weeks. Buyer's agents want to work with me. They want referrals, etc. We're not interested. We've never been interested, right? Because we just don't feel a lot of them deserve what they get paid, right? 12, 15, 20 grand, but they're finding properties up in Townsville that's cost call it 400, 450, 500 grand. So I just don't find a value in that sometimes. Okay, where the client needs to pay 15, 20 grand for a property that costs 500 grand, and they're already struggling finding a deposit themselves. Okay, so tell me, what is the actual cost you've come across for a full service buyer's agency?
Yeah, so I think I've seen full service buyer's agents range from anywhere as low as $8,000 for those just getting started on their journey, to upwards of $20,000. Met a friend of a friend a couple of weeks ago who has 9 investment properties, each one acquired through a buyer's agent at an average price of $20,000. So that's $180,000 in buyer's agency fees over their lifetime, which is insane. That's half the value of a decent property.
Yep. Right, and the highest I've seen it is 22 grand plus GST. Right, that's the highest I've seen it.
That's a brand new car.
I know, right? And the client paid two payments up front, so 44 Gs. Actually, no, it wasn't 44 Gs. It was 40 Gs because he got a bit of a discount, right? But ended up getting the full funds refunded, mate, because the properties they were recommending was just dog shit.
That's half the problem I've come across. One of our recent clients went with a buyer's agent who I will not name, but they were suggesting properties in flood zone areas in rural Queensland that were not Townsville. They were not Mackay. They were not some of these places that were popping. And essentially putting pressure on the client, who's now our client, to accept it. After a while, the client went, guys, if you're not going to work to the brief that I gave you, then I'd love my money back. The crickets started chirping and he never heard from them again. And it took him 2 months before he picked up the phone and called us, and he's now settling on a property.
So what's the actual cost to use PropSpotter these days?
The cost to use PropSpotter is a flat fee of $2,000. That's all inclusive, including GST. It's less than your council rates.
So essentially 2 grand, you're doing the research, you're drilling down the brief, you're sending them the locations, you're sending them listings per week. And all they have to do is just find one of those properties they like, and they negotiate on the properties themselves and the price themselves.
And carry out their due diligence.
Yeah. Mate, that's killer. That's killer.
That's it, mate.
Right? And I personally believe some investors are happy to do the negotiations themselves, right? They just want the location where it best suits them.
They want the validation that they're making the right decision.
They want the validation. Exactly what it is. They want the validation, but they want to they want to pick out the properties themselves, and they want to do the negotiations.
That's right.
So let's talk about the process, right? From start to finish with PropSpotter. So obviously, how we work so well is because a lot of our clients with pre-approvals, especially if they're based in Sydney, they want to invest in the state, they don't know where to invest, right? So we map out a plan for them, then next we pass them on to you. That's why it's worked so good the last 6 months, okay? So let's just start from my journey first, okay? So what we normally like to do is we have a client that wants to invest into state and they live in Sydney, etc. And we map out a plan for them. We map out the borrowing power, we give them different scenarios. Then the next step is, okay, where to invest, right? And that's where we pass them on to you, all right? So when I've done my part with the borrowing power, with the scenarios, and I pass them on to you, what do you guys do with the client?
Yeah, so historically what's happened is the client will reach out to us. It starts off with a 15, 20-minute phone call where we just try to understand what the client's really seeking out to achieve. We had one last week where a client was looking to buy a property in the SMSF, hold it for up to 15 years, but they didn't want to be out of pocket, but still be exposed to capital growth. Now, through that, we then send out an invoice to the client. Client pays the invoice, which is a 50% deposit, and we tie up a strategy session. At the strategy session, we take all of those metrics and discussions we had earlier, and we go deeper in real time. So we pull up all of the various property analytics tools that we have access to. We understand the client's needs, and we sit there right in front of the client, not trying to do anything fancy, and crunch the numbers, right? Through that process, the outcome of that 1 hour session, which can sometimes go for 90 minutes, is to lock down to one suburb.
Yep.
Right? A lot of property investing is about where to invest. And it's where to invest that suits your risk tolerance, your needs, your future strategy. Once we've locked down on that one suburb at the end of the strategy session, we write up a report for the client, acknowledging the next steps, and immediately we begin sending out suitable property listings to those clients.
Sure.
The clients can call us, they can discuss any of the properties that we've sent across, and we can advise them on how to handle negotiations with real estate agents, building and pest contacts, property managers in that specific suburb. But the rest is up to them.
Yeah. So this report that you generate or you write up from is specifically for that suburb only?
Correct.
Not generic, right? Not generic as in like, some buyer's agent out there may be writing up a report, but it's generic because it's all about Townsville only. And Townsville's got hundreds of suburbs, right? So that's what I'm trying to differentiate here.
Yeah, we have locked down into one suburb.
Yep.
Right? We're writing up a report saying, Tony has come to us. This is what Tony wants to seek out of his investment, and we've recommended this suburb because points 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. Okay, right? Good. So what's the next step after that? Right? Say you found the location.
Yep.
You provided them with the report. Okay. So what happens after that?
So right after that, we begin the hunt. Right. So we're keeping an active watch on that suburb. And we're sending out any property listings that meet that investor's criteria right to them as soon as we get them.
So is that email weekly, fortnightly?
Multiple times a week.
Yep.
And we're trying to automate a lot of that stack at the moment. So it makes both our lives and our clients' lives easier. But we are keeping an active watch on that particular market. Sending out listings as soon as they come live to those clients to take action on.
Sure. Okay, fantastic. So essentially, the client will get an email every week with certain listings, for example, and their job is to look at those properties and see which one they like and potentially make an offer on them straight away while it's still hot.
That's right.
Yep.
The client will do their own negotiations, their own due diligence, make an offer on the property with the view to potentially acquire it. So let me ask you this question, right? What if the client doesn't know what is the average price around that area is? Can you still help out trying to give them a guide, as in what is actually the price guide around that area? Yeah, most certainly. So the way we've worked with our clients in the past, Tony, is we've sent them comparables and we've said to them, here's what we think it's worth.
Yep.
Yeah, if they get it for better than that price, their negotiating skills are great and job done. They've acquired their investment property.
So obviously, you're a research house, you're not a full buyer's agency.
Correct.
And that's why you're doing it as a fraction of the price. Okay. So what are some of the variables that you draw down on when you're looking at data and look at certain locations for this client?
Yeah. So first, we really want to take a step back and look at what's the client's expectations of the property? Is it capital growth? Is it positive cash flow? And how willing are they to hold on to negative cash flow? Do they see themselves being employed or getting a huge wage over the next 10, 15 years or the timeline that they wish to hold this property? And through all of that, we then sit down and look at suburbs that are growing, that meet their criteria, right? We've got to remember the market is moving every single day, Tony, and we can use a real life example that you did a loan for, 10 months ago for one of my properties.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Suburb was cold back then.
Yep. North Frankston.
Frankston North, yeah.
Frankston North, sorry.
Suburb was cold back then, you know. Negotiations were in favor of the buyer.
Yep.
And in just 10 months, that's changed tremendously.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Last weekend, a house just sold for 150 grand over guide. So the market shifts and it can shift very quickly.
Yep.
And we're looking at that.
Yep.
Because, some of the data platforms out there, CoreLogic, etc., they can be up to 3 months delayed in their data.
This is a guesstimation.
Yeah. So they're not really looking at what happened on the ground last week. We're doing a combination of that to ascertain what's right for the client.
Yep. So your data is up to date, essentially.
110%.
Right. So essentially, you're looking for the warm spots. That's where to go for the hot spots, right? So I say it all the time. A lot of your buyers agents out there are just selling you areas that's hot already. We don't want the hot spots. We want the warm spots that's ready to go boom right? And that's what you've done with Frankston North.
I think that's the right way to put it, right? You essentially have to look at the warm spots
Yeah.
before they're hot.
Yeah.
Because when they're hot, it's going to be a struggle to get into those markets and you'll be paying overs.
Yeah, essentially that's what you've done. And I'm using Frankston North as an example, right? Because you bought that when it's still very cold. You said it was very cold, right? And when did you buy that again? Sorry, around what time frame?
We settled on the 30th of September 2024 and we're in July 2025 now.
Yep, and it was flat for a while, right? So from September, so when you purchased it in September till like, let's go to the end of the year, December, it was very flat.
Correct.
It was cold, there was no growth, no nothing, right? So the growth actually really came
in January. So the median, and look, for those watching, my numbers may be a little bit off, but the median in Frankston when I bought was sitting at about 625,000.
Yep.
The median today, just a mere 10 months later, is 740,000.
Yep.
And that hasn't yet really, and that's lagging behind by about 2 months.
Yep.
Hasn't yet reflected the growth we've seen in July. If you look at recent real estate sales, I'd probably put the median at 780.
Yeah.
So you're seeing about 150K worth of growth in the last 10 months alone. Most of it, like you said, Tony, in the last 5 months this year.
Yeah. Right. So you're looking for the warm spots, like I said. Yeah. And that's what we want to do, right? We want to look for the warm spots that's ready to go to the hot spot. Okay. We don't want to invest in a hot spot because, so if it's hot, it'll probably go a little bit higher, but it'll probably stay flat after a while because it only gets so hot because they only stay hot for a certain amount of time.
You also have to consider that hotspots, you're getting in at the peak.
Yeah, that's
right. And so the peak, you've already missed out on probably half the boom, 75% of the boom.
Yep.
So you've got 25% left to go.
Yep.
And then you're either flatlining or you're sitting in a decline that'll hang around for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
Perth is a great example of that. Some buyers agents are still recommending some parts of Perth, but Perth has seen its better days in 2024.
Yeah.
And it's beginning to flatline now in 2025.
Yeah, sure. So Big Sean, are you more focusing on new properties or existing properties? What sort of properties do you normally look for your clients?
Existing properties.
Yeah.
I've only ever bought existing properties for myself. PropSpotter is not looking at this from the lens of home and land packages, though, look, you can make some money out of those.
Yeah, but you can't, right? Because it's if it's house and land package, well, the data's not there. Right, to see right, essentially.
Exactly. Right, but and also no off-the-plan apartments for anyone watching. We are focused solely on established houses and depending on the investor's criteria, townhouses, but very rarely units or apartments.
Yep. I mean, tell me how many units has boomed the last 5 years in Sydney?
Look, eastern suburbs, Eastern suburbs, a little bit in the lower North Shore.
Yep.
But forget about Western Sydney.
Yep, exactly,
all of those units are practically gone backwards.
Exactly. So, buddy, obviously PropSpotter is here to bridge the gap for investors, right? That want to invest in interstate, okay? Or anywhere, essentially, all right? Now, who are your typical clients?
We've had a range of clients. So we've had, firstly, that first home investor, someone who knows they want to get into the investment property game, but they don't know where to start.
Yep.
Right? So we help sort of corral them, if you wish, into understanding the data, looking at the data, understanding their needs and their aspirations for their investment property, and then finding that right suburb for them.
Yep.
The second type of client we've had is the experienced property investor, right? So these guys have got a couple of properties under their belt already, and what they're really looking for is they've understood a little bit of the data, but they really want to spend time with a seasoned professional who re-looks at their same data and gives them that validation that they're on the right track, right? Or challenges their thinking.
Yeah.
And so we had a really good call last week where somebody was thinking of, a particular suburb, and we challenged that thinking a little bit more to say, oh, actually, well, what makes you believe that this is what this property will do in 10 years, right? And they gave some great answers.
Yep.
But then we said, okay, well, if you believe that, why not consider this? And they went, actually, I never considered that suburb before either. But your reasons are valid. And so it's that little bit of back and forth that helps challenge their thinking that they're willing to pay for.
And that's why we work so well together for some of our clients, right? Because we have clients that are professionals that work in the city, or even traders, whatever you want to call them, and they're just so time poor. First-time investors got the borrowing power. They can't invest in Sydney because it's so damn expensive, right? And they want to invest in interstate, call it, Queensland, WA, South Australia, Melbourne, whatever you want to call it, okay? But they just don't know where to start, right? And more importantly, mate, they don't even have, 12, 15 or 20 grand to pay for a full service buyer's agent. And that's why we work so well, because you do it for a fraction of the price only.
That's right. I mean, so, our typical clients are really those first home investors. They may be looking to buy interstate, but surprisingly also looking to buy in Sydney as well, just in suburbs they're not familiar with.
Yeah.
The thought of paying $15,000 to $20,000 to a full service buyer's agent doesn't sit well with them, or it's not in their budget.
Yeah.
They want someone to hold their hand while they look through that data.
Yep.
And help them pick that right suburb for them anywhere in the country.
Yep.
And help get them started on their journey. The next type of client we have is the experienced property investor. These are people who have multiple properties under their belt, so they don't really need that service of a full service buyer's agent. They come to us basically just to get some validation on their thinking or have their thinking challenged. And we had one client last week where we had a very great session. They brought up that they were looking at suburb A. We went through the reasons they were looking at suburb A, which were all valid and fair. But we said, well, those reasons also apply to suburb B. And in fact, suburb B had some pros to it that didn't apply to suburb A.
Yeah. And you made a valid point right there, right? Because some of these first-time investors are actually finding it difficult to even save up to get their foot into the property market, right? So the average prices these days are what, 500,000 for a good investment, right?
That's right.
And what's the average salary these days, right?
I think the median wage in this country is hovering at about 75 to 80 grand a year.
And what about Sydney itself? Let's use Sydney itself.
I mean, let's say it's 95.
95, right? So you're earning 95, right? But you need to save up 10% deposit for an investment property, right? Call it 50 Gs.
Yep.
Okay. Stamp duty involved.
20. Yep.
Right? Solicitor costs.
2.5.
2.5, right? If you want to use a full buyer's agency service fee, what's that? Call it 15 Gs.
Yeah, so now you're upwards of 85 grand. Right? And 95 grand post-tax is probably 70 grand salary.
Exactly right. So that's what we say. A lot of our first-time investors are actually struggling to even save up for this deposit, let alone trying to use a buyer's agent, costing 12, 15, 20 Gs, right? Well,
exactly right.
If they use you guys, fraction of the price.
1/10 of the price.
There you go. Right? There you go. So for our audience, let's just drill down on a real-life example right now. Okay?
Let's do it.
We worked with a client, right? We got him the pre-approval, and he just purchased a property down in Melbourne, Victoria. Okay. I'll let you explain what we've just done.
Yeah. So client had a pretty particular budget here. He was working to about a purchase price of about $550,000. He was adamant that he wanted to be in one of the capital cities. So that's in Australia, particularly on the East Coast. So that's Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Brisbane's had its days, so that's out. Sydney, you're not getting a house and land for 500 around the 500 grand mark. And Melbourne, as of the last couple of months, is starting to see a little bit of a rise. And so when we got started and we started looking at the numbers, the only option was Melbourne amongst the three cities. And through that, as we spoke about earlier, Frankston North is already on a tear, so that's gone. The suburbs near the airport, Broadmeadows, Dallas, they were already on a tear, and most of Melbourne is essentially starting to rip. But close to it laid a suburb called Diggers Rest. Lots of vacant land, lots of house and land packages coming up, but a small allocation of houses, old houses near the station, established houses that have been there for 30, 40 plus years. And we snagged one for the client for $535,000 with a granny flat.
With a granny. Yep.
Now, the granny does need some work to it. But once you throw in about $40,000 worth of renovations, which the client has gotten a quote for and is going to start pretty soon, you're looking at a house and granny that'll yield about $700 a week for a all-in price of about $610,000.
So once the granny flat's rented out, what's the yield you're looking at then?
Yeah, so my yield calculations are a little bit different. I like to include all the costs. A lot of people just do it off purchase price.
Yeah, which is bullshit.
Exactly. In this scenario, once I account for all the costs, we're looking at a yield of 5.95%.
5.95.
5.95% in metropolitan Melbourne.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
5.95% in metropolitan Melbourne off a total all-in cost of $610,000.
Yeah, and by the way, his cost of funds right now is 5.8%, right? So, right, interest only. So if his cost is 5.8% and his future yield is going to be around just under 6%, mate, he'll be positive geared sooner or later once some more rate drops.
110%. And that's the intention here, right? We want to create a property portfolio that generates you cash flow, gives you opportunities for capital growth, and be in a capital city, which was the client's brief in this case.
So for our audience out there, so are you seeing Diggers Rest as the next warm spot that's ready to go to the hot spot?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends.
Depends on what?
It depends on what the client...
Throw a bone out for our clients out there. Throw a bone out for our audience out there, mate. Come on.
I think every client has different objectives. Right. And so, you know, when I look back at myself 12 months ago, I wanted to be in the next warm spot that was turning into a hot spot.
Yep.
In this particular client's case, he wanted to be in metropolitan Melbourne on a neutrally geared basis. That was his idea of a hot spot.
Yep.
And so Diggers Rest was the right suburb for him.
Yep.
Because we were able to get him in on a neutrally geared basis. Now, you know, if you were out there looking at the next warm spot that's turning into a hot spot, Broadmeadows, Meadow Heights, Dallas, Coolaroo, some of those suburbs there.
What's the prices around there?
They were $550.
Yep.
They're now touching $6.
Yep, really?
$600,000. And I think in the next 6 months, there'll be a hot spot.
Yep. So there you go, guys. Okay, start researching or get in contact with PropSpotter right here. So Sean, for our audience and viewers out there, how can they get in contact with you, buddy?
PropSpotter.com.au, Tony.
That's it.
That's the website.
That's it.
Got a contact us form there, or we've got our phone number up there.
Yep.
Jump on there, give us a ring, and one of our team will be on the other side of the phone ready to chat.
Fantastic. So there you have it, everyone. Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Mortgage Chat. And please stay in tune and look out for more episodes in the future because we're going to do a lot more content with Sean from the PropSpotter team. As always, thanks for joining me and have a great day.